This is an audio test. Figuring out if it works. Can you just scream at the mic? Ah! Ah! Okay, so, like, are you ready?
Yeah.
The mic is really close to your side, but not mine. Is that, like...
That's fine, I think, if it's right here.
Because you don't want me to be a part of it? I mean, it is called the Trent and Blake Show. Like, are you, like, some sort of egotistical piece of shit? Like, what the hell, dude? Well, now you're just using your phone. Dude, is this syrup? How the fuck did that get there? Hold up.
Hold up.
Wait. All the motherfuckers are in the shit in the house and the lid in the shit in the... Hey.
Hello everyone, welcome.
You're just gonna keep the mic by you at all times?
Welcome to the Trent and Blake podcast. Today we'll be talking about... Okay, here we go. Section 1, introduce ourselves and what the podcast is going to be. Basically, just say the show isn't just movie stuff and will features be more than just guys. Okay, so section 2, introduce the movie and the legend behind it. Okay, section 3, discuss the flaw of the movie. Section 4, discuss the ending and what we think the movie's about. And that's it.
Alright, thank you guys for listening. That's it. Bye.
That's it. Bye-bye.
Bye. Hello everyone, and welcome to the Trent and Blake Show. I'm your host, Trent Lamm.
And I'm Blake Childress, otherwise known as that one filmmaker.
And today we're going to be talking about the ever elusive sex.
No. Cut it.
No, this is not good enough. We have to redo the entire fucking intro. Okay, but all jokes aside or whatever the fuck. Welcome to the podcast. We're just trying this out. We're gonna see if it works.
Yeah.
See if it's shit. If it's shit, then
No, I won't do it anymore.
We'll just quit doing it, and we'll get off the internet.
Yes.
So basically, welcome to the Trent and Blake Show with me, Trent, and him, Blake.
Yes.
And basically, this is going to be a podcast that's not, even though this first episode is about movies, or like a movie, this podcast itself, it's not just going to be about movies. It's actually going to be more like two guys sitting down
And talking
about the shit and
Yeah.
What can we talk about? Like
anything and everything.
anything, everything, and nothing at the exact same time.
Yes.
Are you just smelling the candle?
Yeah.
Like, I really need a good smell. What flavor is that?
This
Flavor?
is
Taste?
Texas. Well, it's not a taste. It's
Are you trying to show it to the mic?
It's Texas thunderstorm.
Does it smell like a Texas thunderstorm?
Kind of. Smells good.
Wait, like... It smells just like when you walk outside and it's raining.
Yeah.
So
like Texas thunderstorm.
I guess it's not that bad. First of all, a very important thing that we need to get right out of the way. Trent.
Yes.
How are you feeling?
Okay.
Okay, I'm glad we got that out of the way. All right, let's now move on to the topic at hand, what we're going to be talking about. And that is a movie. It's a movie that just came out. It's called
Tenet,
and we're going to talk about how much of a amazing masterpiece it is.
It was a Nolan movie.
And we liked it.
No.
I liked it.
It just released.
What?
In 2020. It was supposed to come out
In
July.
2015.
Didn't come out in July 2020, so it got moved to end of July 2020. Didn't come out. So it's going to come out in August.
August 2020.
But it didn't, so they went and said Labor Day weekend, and it came out.
And we watched it, and we thought it was a masterpiece, right?
No.
No? Oh. So we're just being serious?
Sorry, Nolan.
I'm very sorry, Christopher Nolan. It's not as good as, what's that movie called? With magic?
Prestige. Illusion.
The Illusion Prestige movie. But yeah. But we're not talking about Tenet. That's actually not the topic of the video. Because if you already saw the title, we're bullshitting. We're not actually going to talk about fucking Tenet. Instead, we're going to be talking about a new movie created by the one and the only Charlie Kaufman, and that movie is I'm Thinking of Ending Things. And no, it's not related to 13 Reasons Why. No, it's not. Shut the fuck up already. It is a movie by Charlie Kaufman, and it just came out. It released, what was it, like Friday?
A couple days ago.
Yeah, a couple days ago. And yeah, we're going to be talking about that. So, first of all, Trent, what do you think about Charlie Kaufman?
He's a good man. He's got curly hair. He looks a little bit like me, but older. He knows how to write stuff.
Wow.
He's written good movies. He wrote for the Dana Carvey Show, which is a very funny show. I enjoy that.
Funny haha show.
Yes. He's known for his not out of the world stuff, but more delving into human psyche and bringing in bigger themes.
Mm-hmm. He talks about like simple shit, but he explores it with just a very, like you said, like otherworldly, just.
Usually, a lot of his movies, he likes going into the head of a quote unquote loser. Because if you look at being John Malkovich, he goes into John Cusack, which that's not his character's name, but that actor. His character in that movie, he goes into basically his mindset throughout most of it. And it's about him going into John Malkovich. And
into John Malkovich.
In adaptation, it's himself. Writing about himself.
It's a very meta movie. Nick Cage plays Charlie Kaufman himself.
And then we have his other movies as well, but those are the main ones. And then Eternal Sunshine as well.
He didn't direct that, but he wrote it.
He wrote all those films. He didn't direct any of those. But this is one of the first few, I think it's only 3 of his movies that he's ever directed. There's I can never say it, but the New York one, the Mona Lisa, and then this one right here. So, it's based off a book by Ian Reid. We actually just purchased the book today to read it.
Oh, yeah, and I haven't read the book yet, but I'm hoping it's pretty good.
Yeah, that's about it, really. I'd say.
Pretty simple introduction.
Here's a lot of the actors in this movie are very well known. And
yeah, you got the 2 Jessies. You got Jesse Plemons and
Jessie Buckley, who made her big splash, I feel like, with Chernobyl in that series. And she played a firefighter's wife in it very well, and I really enjoyed her performance then. I feel like this one really shows how she's gonna be mainstream very soon, I feel like. Then you have Jesse Plemons, who's basically
fucking legend.
He's always been, the weird.
He's been around
guy. His most famous film, as we all know, is Game Night.
Everyone loves that movie.
Where he played a security cop guy. I can't remember, but
he always plays the same type of character.
And he's just a little weird in that movie, but
he's
that's
always
fine.
Just an awkward individual.
But he's a very good actor. I would highly recommend him in Fargo. Then we also have Tony Collette and I can never
Tony Collette
say his name, but David Thewlis. I can never say his name.
David Thewlis.
As we all know, he's from the Harry Potter series and also from Fargo.
Wow.
And then Tony Collette, as we all know, from Hereditary and Little Miss Sunshine.
The greatest movie of all time.
All
she was in Little Miss
phenomenal actors and actresses in this film. And yeah.
Well, we've now just introduced the actors, but now let's talk about the plot itself. I don't know how the hell we're gonna talk about this.
The main plot of this is
should we discuss the synopsis just on Netflix? It's really simple.
Basically, a man and a woman who are dating are going to go meet the man's parents on a road trip. And this whole time, this girl is thinking about ending things with this guy.
And as she's going with the trip and thinking about those things, reality starts to just displace itself. And a lot of, I guess, just the nicest way to put it is, weird shit happens. Things seem out of place, and names change, careers change, items move around. It's a very, very subtle movie where, there are some things that are very, you can tell that Charlie Kaufman's trying to, tell you, oh, you need to pay attention to this. It's oh, yeah, Toni Collette is just, an old woman now, you're supposed to pay attention to it, but if you notice the little details, then, it's like a Easter egg sort of thing.
Exactly.
But, Yeah, basically all that happens in this movie is in the opening we have
a 20-minute dialogue in a car.
Yeah, it's honestly
a lot of philosophical discussion about life, and
she reads a poem she wrote, and it's a very, very in-depth poem about marriage.
How marriage can bring you or make you into an empty shell of a human.
It's very pessimistic and somewhat negative, which I feel is one thing that some people say they don't like about Charlie Kaufman, is that they say that some things he makes is just like really negative and stuff, which I feel like he actually makes a commentary on in the movie, because Jesse Plemons is always like, dude, I just like being positive. I just like what was the part of that when that happened? It was when they were talking about Baby It's Cold Outside.
Yes.
And she's like, dude, it's a song about a rapist. And he's like, but it's cold outside. And that's one thing that's really interesting about the movie, is that like he's making so many commentaries about like people that criticize his movies and just like film in general. Like there's the really funny Robert Zemeckis joke, which was just hilarious.
And there's also a big part with Jessie Buckley's character in the beginning where she's a painter and she's talking with the parents, and she says she's talking about the painting and how if you look at it, it's your own emotion will make you feel how you feel about this type of artwork. But then the father in the movie, David Thewlis, how do you say that? He basically says, "Oh, I don't know how to feel. I need a person being sad to feel sad.
I need to see someone being sad, so I know to feel sad."
Exactly.
And she's like, "Oh, yeah, you don't need that. You can look at the picture.
You can look at it, and your own emotions will make you feel how you feel about this painting."
And he's just like, "No, that's not."
Because they have a big discussion about abstract, which is big with Charlie Kaufman, especially if you look at something like Being John Malkovich, where you're going 15 minutes inside of John Malkovich's head, and it's very abstract and makes you really think about the whole, human psyche and all that, like he usually does. So yeah, most of his films are abstract, and it kind of is a little bit of a play on his critics, but a lot of his films do that as well.
It's just very, weird, but it's weird in a way that's kind of entertaining. But with this movie, the one thing that's very interesting about it is that it's weird, but it's not meant to be like entertaining. Because like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, while he didn't direct it, there are a lot of things in it where it's weird and it's like funny in a way. Like, oh yeah, look at fucking Jim Carrey. Now he's like young baby.
Yeah.
But he's still like...
And Kate Winslet is way taller than
adult.
Yeah.
And like with this movie, he does weird things, but it's not meant to be like fun or entertaining. It's been advertised as a horror movie, and it's not really like a horror movie in a way that some people would think.
There's no terrifying images or anything. There's very uncomfortable moments where it's not scary, you just feel super uncomfortable.
Just people talking, and there's just like arguments.
And their reactions to certain like dialogue is kind of what brings the fear and horror into the thing.
And a lot of the like uncomfortable moments are like the most relatable things with the movie. Like we mentioned in the beginning the 20-minute car ride scene, which it sounds boring, but the thing that's amazing about it is how relatable and realistic it is, especially with how my favorite thing about it, especially with the writing and the performances, is that the characters are constantly interrupting each other.
Yes. A lot of dialogue bleeds through to each other.
Yeah, so it's like, oh yeah, she's thinking to herself, and then Jesse Plemons just says like, oh, do you want to like stop and just like get a snack somewhere? She's like, no, I don't really feel like it. It's just like, it makes me feel like, yeah, they're not reading the lines, they're characters, and they're just playing out their roles. And like, he specifically wrote in the script, I need you to interrupt her. So it's not fake, but like you can just tell that it was supposed to happen.
Exactly.
But yeah. As for what happens in the plot,
we'll go into spoilers about
what happens.
Really deep into it, but like throughout the movie, ever since the beginning of the film, we see a man on a farm, an older gentleman, and he works, as we see through our little snippets. He's working at his school as a janitor. And near the beginning, I kind of thought, because they have this whole thing about Oklahoma, the musical. They keep bringing it up because Jesse Plemons talks to Jessie Buckley about like, hey, I love this musical. And he just keeps telling her about it. And he's singing along to some of the songs as well, while at the same time at that high school, a performance of Oklahoma is being rehearsed. And a lot of the girls in that show look at this old man very weirdly and think he's a very
creepy person.
Creepy man.
A pervert.
He just, basically a pervert. And so that's kind of like
it's
the
a
big
moment
red flag where it makes you think maybe Jesse Plemons is this old man.
And this is just in the future.
Yes.
But yeah, as they're going to his parents' house, it's very... I think the one thing that's great about the movie is its setting, where it's just like... It's very desolate, and it's like... It feels just like a wasteland. There's no... You don't see any trees. You don't see any life. Like, when they go out to their house, it is like in the middle of fucking nowhere.
Yes.
It's nighttime. Snow covers everything.
You can't see the grass or anything.
It's just complete snow.
Yeah, due to the snow, there is no... Even later in the movie, when they stop at a Dairy Queen-esque place, it's literally just in the middle of nowhere. Like,
it's like we
you
said,
can't even see the roads, really.
It's bizarre and otherworldly, but there's got to be a purpose for it, right? But they go inside of the parents' house, and how do we even explain what happens?
Jessie Buckley, who in the movie is called Young Woman, but at the beginning she's called Lucy. Yes, and she's a painter / a physicist. She's studying that in college,
and she's a poet as well.
Yes, and so basically they go in, and Jesse Plemons' character, his name is Jake. He's calling up to his parents like, "Hey, come down. She's here. I want you to meet her." And then they have this long dinner scene where, as we said, the painting discussion comes in.
It's very uncomfortable.
Yes.
It's kind of like, like I said, with the whole being very relatable, that whole thing of like, oh, if you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend and you have to go, meet the parents, of course, the parents' talk is just very awkward. Like, oh, we want to know about the first time you guys fell in love. And
we learn also that Jake, who, young woman Lucy, she says, like, in the beginning that, oh, he's a very nice guy. He listens to what I say and all that. But in reality, when we start seeing him act around his parents, he's very noticeable anger issues.
He has a lot of pent-up fury within him.
He believes a lot of his damaged psyche comes from his parents. And he also, he's an only child, so he feels like he's been smothered by his parents.
Yeah.
And basically what happens is he starts, screaming at his mom just because she asks a couple, like something like, oh, how did y'all meet? He just starts banging on the table.
Yeah, and like there's this really nice part where she's talking about like a board game they played, and she keeps calling it like, oh, Genius Edition.
Yeah,
but at one point he's just like, Genius Edition.
Or Genius, yeah.
Yeah, it's Genius Edition, and like I said, it's very, very uncomfortable.
Yeah,
it makes you just like want to pause the movie and just say like, I can't do this right now.
Yeah.
But what happens after this scene is where the movie starts to basically fuck with you.
It starts to really go into someone's head, and mostly that's the young woman Lucy. And so basically, she keeps during the whole movie, she says she needs to get back home before the end of the night because she has to write a paper for class. But then she goes upstairs to see Jake's bed. And his old room.
Yeah, it's like perfect.
And his dad comes in, and now he's all of a sudden a lot older.
He's like a good 30, 40 years older.
Exactly. And he talks about how he has very noticeable signs of dementia, and he talks about
how he can't really remember things anymore.
And talks about how they have signs all over the house about where each room is and what each thing means. And
he also says how like he doesn't want to admit dementia. Like she says it, but he's like, I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah. And so they have this whole discussion about what they as a couple would do in the bed, which we all know what that means.
It's very awkward. He's just like, I don't know if you guys could fuck in a children's bed because children's beds are made for one child, and it's just like it's weird. It's just like an 80-year-old man talking with a like 30-year-old or like 20-year-old, 25-year-old woman just saying like, "You guys can fuck into bed," but
and
it's
also,
just a little small.
Something weird as well was a little noticeable detail. The house looks 2 stories from the outside, but when you're looking in the house, there's just stairs. There's multiple stairs everywhere.
Yeah, there's like a constant.
And when she's up in that second story, there's just more stairs going up, like just constant stairs. So you're like, what?
There's like 6 things of stairs within this 2-story.
So it seems like
house.
there's 6 levels, but there's only.
It's only a 2-story house.
So they have this whole discussion, and then she comes down, and then all of a sudden, she gets another name.
Yeah, her name changes.
And and also the mom as well, played by Toni Collette. She's older now and being cared for by Jake, and he's feeding her soup and stuff. And she keeps talking about like, oh, she needs to get home because she has a work shift now, not an essay to do, and she has a totally different name. It's like
Lucia. Was it Lucia?
Lucia or something. And
she works at like it wasn't a
waitress now.
Yeah, she's a waitress.
Which also earlier, sorry if we jump around, but the janitor is watching a movie while he's on his lunch break.
Oh yeah, the Robert Zemeckis.
And it's a Robert Zemeckis film, and basically it's Charlie Kaufman really poking fun at the whole, because his old movies there's a big line in the beginning of adaptation where he talks about how he doesn't want a movie to just be like this happy-go-lucky type thing. He thinks they should be real life and really
uncomfortable.
Yeah, really take
real.
The emotion of what real life is, not this sappy type rom-com that he watches where it's this girl watching over this waitress or this
it's a
waiter.
Guy. Yeah.
And then this waiter all of a sudden professes his love for this girl.
And she gets fired.
She gets fired, but then they still fall in love.
And
the entire what's it called? The entire
joke?
No. The entire diner starts clapping as well when he
there's like yes,
and he gets kicked out, and he's watching this, and then later on in the movie, this actress who plays the girl in that movie changes to Lucy. Like Lucy just changed from Jessie Buckley to this other actress. Very strange.
Yeah, it's very weird. Like we had to like pause the movie, go back, and be like, wait, was that real? Because that's another thing to mention is there's a lot of moments where you think you see something change.
Yeah.
But like in reality, nothing changed at all. You think the changes are so subtle that like you go back, you look, and nothing changed at all.
Exactly.
So it's like Charlie Kaufman himself is fucking with you purposefully, and also some things just aren't even happening. Yeah. It's like you're losing your mind while the movie's actually.
He's
happening.
already set up that there's going to be these minuscule, like little changes. Kind of like if you look at Eternal Sunshine, when a little spoiler for that, but when Joel in that movie starts losing his memory, and you look in the library, like all the books are turned around, like he can't even know what the books are. He
little
just sees
little things.
Kate Winslet's character, and it's just these tiny little things that Kaufman does that really add to
little
it.
symbols where you can analyze it and figure out what it means.
And so she's also getting these phone calls from a friend, she says, but it's this really distorted voice.
And she's saying there's an answer that you must address at this point.
Yeah.
It's just like a very distorted male voice. And in the beginning, when she looks at the phone call, it says it's from a friend.
Yeah, it says Lucy.
It's her own name that's calling her.
And later, I think it says Yvonne, and she answers saying, "Oh, it's just a friend. It's nothing." And she never really addresses it. But then she starts seeing the parents of Jake as younger people.
Yeah, now
they're basically saying like,
30s.
"Oh, he's really controlling. You don't have to listen to him." And even the dad's, back in his like young 30s, very youthful as well. I forgot what he talked about in his little part, but
because the weirdest part was at one point, Toni Collette's character became really old, and then the dad was still like 30s.
Yes,
for some reason.
But at one point they say, go down the basement. It doesn't matter what Jake says. And so she goes down there and to put a piece of clothing into a washer, and she finds multiple pairs of the janitor's uniform.
Clothes.
So that just adds to the whole.
Like, is Jesse Plemons actually the janitor
that they've been showing? Then also at the beginning of the movie, we see the janitor watching her at the beginning,
and it's very confusing. It's like if that is
because he's heavily breathing, watching her as she just stands outside.
So we think he's just some creeper guy, but he could be just Jesse Plemons.
And so Jake and her leave. she changes her whole accent at one point in the car and talks about movies, and she's basically like a film person now.
Because it's funny, because she pulls out a cigarette and her voice completely changes, and you can notice that the actress is going for like a smoker voice, but also like a high society, like film critic. And she's like, in every single part of the movie, the characters do this, and it's just like, again, it's just weird. It's just weird shit that would never happen normally in a normal movie.
So yeah, we go through that, and then he says he's a sweet junkie, so he wants to go get some sweets. And he keeps talking about this place. I can't remember what it was called in the movie, but it's called Burr. That's what it's called. And there's this whole like mascot for it that they talk about, and they have a jingle for it that changes multiple times throughout the film. Mm-hmm. And so he goes
Dairy
there.
Queen.
That's and then, basically it's Dairy Queen. And so he goes there with her, and it's just in the middle of nowhere, this little burr. And these two girls come out, and it's the girls from the high school that looked at the janitor weird and made fun of him. And Jake said, I don't want to go up there. Because I've come here so many times that they're going to make fun of me.
Which further adds to the concept that he's the janitor.
And we see in the beginning when the janitor gets in his truck that he has the burr, that wrapper on his car.
Of the Queen logo thing.
And so he gets in, or they get their little Oreo cookie things. And as these girls are kind of like laughing at Jake, and then this girl starts telling Jessie Buckley's character, she's like, you're going through time,
Like, it tries to kind of explain how it works, but, like, you can tell that it's not really something you have to look that deep into. Like, how it's kind of explained is we as people are stationary, and we don't move through time. Time moves through us.
Yes.
So age is, like, completely meaningless, and nothing really changes around us. We just get older. Exactly. And it's fucking weird. She's like, you don't have to keep going. You can just stay here. Mm-hmm. And it's just very weird.
Exactly. So we have that whole little scene. And then he decides, hey, we're just going to go to my high school real quick. To
drop off the burrs.
So he goes there. We see the janitor truck just staying there. And then they have the discussion about the baby, it's cold outside. And then they start to make out. And then we get this once the kissing starts getting more intense, we see this quick shot of the janitor looking through people, like moaning really loudly.
And it's very quick. Like,
I almost like didn't even notice it. It's like, but the sound just goes really loud in the back.
It's kind of like the one jump scare I could call in the movie.
And the only person who notices this is Jake, and he freaks out and he feels his head, meaning this is probably all in his own head. Mm-hmm. That time is going through him right now. As the janitor, like he's starting to realize who he is. Mm-hmm. And so, since he's the only one, and he also states that he knows the look that the guy was giving.
Yeah.
Which means
he understands.
He's probably given it before. And so he goes into the school to talk sense to this guy.
And Jessie Buckley gets pissed.
Yeah, because she's freezing in the car.
She's like, how long does it take to die of hypothermia?
Exactly. So she gets out of the car real quick and realizes it's locked.
She's fucked.
So she goes into the school to figure out what's happening, and she doesn't want to get caught by this janitor, so she's hiding a little bit. And then this janitor guy comes up to her, and then she brings up this another story about how they met.
Yeah, it's completely different.
About how so the beginning story of the movie was that they met at a trivia night in a bar, but now this story is that, and the story's changed throughout the whole movie, but this is the big one where she says all that happened was that she was having a wedding anniversary with her friend, because her and her husband just had an anniversary. Mm-hmm. Jessie Buckley's character. And she said there was a creepy guy looking at her the whole time, and she only felt safe if her husband was there, so she didn't do anything about it. And so all she could see was this creepy guy, and she says it's Jake, just looking at her. And so the janitor says, I've never seen someone like that. They're not here. Mm-hmm. And she's just like, well, can I go look? So he finds her, she leaves, gives the janitor a hug, and he just kind of watches her.
It's weird.
And then a dance sequence happens with
Jesus,
new dancer versions of Jessie Buckley.
Yeah, they're wearing
the
same clothes. They're supposed to be the same characters.
And so they have this whole nice dance. They get married during the dance sequence. There's no dialogue as well.
It's silent.
And then they go to the auditorium, and they're dancing and stuff. And then all of a sudden, a janitor dancer comes in and stabs.
Stabs Jake.
Yeah, who we think is Jake.
Yeah.
stabs him, and then Jessie Buckley's dancer kind of freaks out a little bit, and then both Jessies, so Jake and the young woman look over the whole scene.
And they just sort of look,
and they kind of realize...
Like, it's all covered in snow, the whole basketball court. The body is completely covered in snow. And they just sort of look at each other, and then they turn around and leave.
Because they kind of just both realize what's really going on. And then we just get shots of the janitor cleaning up this whole mess. Mm-hmm. And he walks to his truck, And then
oh my God,
he gets in and just starts freaking out because he starts seeing Jake's character.
He sees his Jake's
into
parents.
His mind. Yeah, he sees the parents. He sees everything going on, and then he starts stripping
just
all
for
his
no
clothes.
reason.
And then all of a sudden he sees an animated pig, which earlier in the movie Jake talked about a dead pig that had maggots with it, like all in it, that his dad had to carry out. And he said that kind of has been in his head for a while, but so he sees that, and this old man follows this pig into nude.
And the pig is just like talking about like he says something about how like there's always somebody in society that has to be the dead pig filled with maggots, and just by luck of the draw it probably is you, or like it's a weird fucking line.
And so he walks into a ceremony for Jake in old makeup.
Yeah, and it looks like theater makeup.
So it's still Jesse Plemons, but he's an old man makeup. Mm-hmm. And he's up there accepting a Nobel Peace Prize, and all the people watching are also old. In the theater old makeup. Like his mother's on stage with him in a wheelchair.
Jessie Buckley's in the crowd.
Jessie Buckley's in there just watching. And so he accepts the award and then sings a song from Oklahoma. And then they all clap, and then that's basically it.
Like, that's the one thing that's just weird, is that he just sings a full song from just Oklahoma, and that's just how the movie ends. Yeah. There is no like moment of clarity where we finally understand everything. He just sings a song, and then it cuts to their car, which is completely covered in snow, outside the school
in the daytime,
and then it just ends.
Yes.
It says the end, written and directed by Charlie Kaufman.
Yeah.
And the only moment of, like, after the credits are over, like, it's not like an after credit scene.
Yeah,
but
it's just a quick second.
All that happens is you hear, like, a car moving. It's like maybe the janitor's truck moving, but you just hear, like, a car starting up and moving away. Mm-hmm. And then it just cuts and it's over. Oh, dude, that's the plot of the movie.
And that's not even, like, all. Like, there's a lot.
There's a lot of subtle details that we missed.
We just kind of try to get
all through the whole thing.
Yeah, very quickly. But so the ending is the big part that everyone needs to discuss.
Because like, what is it even like about?
What is it about? And so a big thing with Kaufman is he likes to not tell people. He likes to, like that painting allegory he did earlier in the movie. He just kind of like, how do you feel about it, basically?
Yeah, there is no definite like thing you're supposed to know or learn from a movie. He doesn't like one main message. He likes you to watch the movie and make your own message. It's like a choose your own adventure book sort of thing. Basically. You choose your own thematic statement for yourself. Mm-hmm. And like, I guess we can just dude, you should have did an ASMR. I should have went to the mic just well, I guess the thing we can talk about is personally what we thought the movie was about. Because I mean, everyone's gonna have completely different interpretations of what it all means. But I mean, I strongly feel good about my opinion. But again, Charlie Kaufman's not going to tell us what it's supposed to mean. Yeah. So
when you listen to this, yes.
Yeah, we're just going to have to figure out for ourselves.
Yeah.
But so I mean, what do you think? Like,
so my whole thought process was, this perverted man. We know he's infatuated with Jessie Buckley's character, but I think he sees her kind of as the ideal woman, but sees her another woman that he basically like fawns over and lusts. And so, and these girls could be high school girls, we're not sure, because a lot of the high school girls look at him in disgust, so we don't know. But I think that's kind of,
He just sees her as all these other characters. Because she looks a lot like the actress in the Robert Zemeckis film that they've joked about. She does look a lot like that. So I feel like that's his ideal woman. And he's going through a point in his life where I feel like changed him into who he is, but he's seen it all from her perspective.
Yeah, he's reflecting back and looking
kind
at
of like how the part where they're talking about "Baby It's Cold Outside," he just says like, "Oh, it's a fun song," and then she's like, "Well, it's about rape."
Yeah, he finally sees.
Yeah, he sees what is
her
happening.
opinions.
So he's seen it all from her opinion and seen the outside view of the trauma he went through with his parents. Because we never get told exactly what happened, but we know something happened.
We know the relationship between.
We never get answers, but there's a lot of scratches on a basement door, and they keep saying he's down there. So maybe he might have been put in there sometimes when he was bad or something. So maybe something happened with his psyche there. But I think this one moment in his life changed him to who he is. But at the same time, he always dreams of being someone who he isn't. That's why in that dance sequence, he kills the husband.
Yeah, because he wants to be.
He wants that to be him. While they're all in nice clothes, the dancer is still in the janitor uniform. So that's all he's ever going to be. And
Just a janitor.
He can't move out of his own young self. He's stuck, basically, in his own little world. Because as Jesse Buckley character moves through persona to persona, he just kind of stays the same. Meaning he's stuck in this whole person that he is. And then at that ending, when I feel like when he's in the truck, I feel like the whole movie, everything that happened kind of just goes through him at that time when he's in the truck. Like he sees all the things just probably in a glimpse, like in a flash of a second. He sees it all. And then kind of just walks through the school and goes into the auditorium where he always talked about wanting to do theater and all that. And he sees himself getting a Nobel Prize.
He imagines like
his own.
Perfect. Because I think that's the point of the old age makeup.
Yeah.
Like how he would want to be at this age.
Yeah, because he's his old man is like, he's chubby.
He's chubby as
he's
shit.
big. He's, people look at him with disgust and stuff. But he sees his younger self as not like that. So he's seeing his younger self as an older person, like, oh, that's how it should have been, getting the Nobel Prize, and then Jesse Buckley looking at him. So it's like his ideal woman would be with him. And then he gets to sing a power ballad, which is about...
And it's
that
all unrelated.
That whole song is about a guy wanting a girl that he can't get.
Yeah, he can't get with. So
that kind of says it for you.
Yeah.
But he sings his little power ballad from Oklahoma, which he had always loved. And his parents as well mentioned musicals as well, so they also had loved it before. So he just he sees himself not only accomplishing what he wanted, but also accomplishing what probably his parents saw in him. Because his parents never outright stated, but he probably himself feels like a disappointment to his own family.
Yeah, he feels like a failure, so since he can't redeem himself, he is just reflecting on a what-if scenario. What if I got to live the life I could have lived?
Exactly.
Like I said with Charlie Kaufman, depressing, it's not hopeful at all.
Exactly. I could rewatch this movie and get a totally different thing out of this, just based on how I was feeling on that day when I watched it,
It's always going to be something different.
Exactly.
But with me, first of all, I completely agree with all that. I agree with the idea of the janitor completely being Jesse Plemons. Like that has to be what it is. I mean, I don't know, maybe I'm just maybe it's just a thing I'm attached to, but like her going in the washing machine and finding the janitor clothes, like that's obviously.
And what we could tell also at the beginning, they talk about a swing set and stuff at the farm. In the beginning, we see the swing set, we see the house, but in springtime, so he probably as well just lives at that house.
Yeah, and like that whole thing of time moving through you, it seems like he has memories of being a janitor while he's Jesse Plemons. He talks about, like you said, the swing set, which why would that be at high school? But and he talks about like the teenagers when they stop at the Dairy Queen place.
Yeah. And
how just they don't like him. So it's just like those two characters are one and the same. But the one thing that I find important, like, what is this all supposed to be? What is this whole, like, fucking nightmare of events that are going on?
Mm-hmm.
What is he trying to say? What's, like, the main thing it's a commentary on? And I had to, like, think about it for a while because it's hard to pinpoint one single thing. But I think, of course, the obvious thing that this is trying to talk about is love and romantics and relationships. Because, I mean, with that the Robert Zemeckis movie that he's watching, like you said, you know,
it's just cheesy.
It's a perfect, like you said, ideal relationship of a guy saying, "Oh my God, I love you," everyone clapping, and then she just, like, holds his hand and says, "I love you too," you know, like that whole sort of thing. Charlie Kaufman with this movie is making the statement that that's not love. Love is dirty. Love is uncomfortable. And that's why she's constantly saying, "I'm thinking of ending it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to, do this relationship anymore." And it's just such a, like I said, it's just pessimistic. There is no hope for their relationship. Jesse Plemons is just constantly saying how, like, things are going well, even when he's screaming and yelling and shit like that. And it's just, that's the main thing that I can focus on, is that it's all about love, and it's very similar to Eternal Sunshine. It's just that, like, Eternal Sunshine had a simple thing that you can understand of the concept of removing memories.
Yes.
And it's about love and all that. And this movie is also tackling love, but it's just even more out there. Because, like, I'm not kidding you, I don't know if this movie actually happened. Like, the events of the story, I don't know if it's all, like, in a dream, in a mind. Like, if we're saying, like, oh yeah, the janitor guy's imagining his future, why can't this whole thing be imagined? Like, imagining him showing his ideal lover his parents. And, like, it's even the more sad part, if this is all imagined, his imaginary girlfriend is wanting to end their relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just a really sad movie.
Exactly.
But, and one thing that I thought was really interesting was, of course, this movie is supposed to be, like, well, I mean, it's not supposed to be, but we discussed how it's not a horror movie. It's uncomfortable, and it's just very distressing, weird imagery. But one thing that I discovered is basically within human nature, it is understandable to be afraid of what we don't understand, because we're just going to flat out admit it, we don't understand this movie. There's a lot of things that you're just not going to understand, and that's why some people probably won't even like it, because it's hard to really figure out what this movie is about, what it's trying to say. And I feel like, since people have been saying this is Charlie Kaufman's, like, take on a horror movie.
Yeah.
So I feel like if this is supposed to be a horror movie, it's probably the most fucking terrifying movie of all time, just because of the concept that humans are afraid of what they don't understand and what they can't control. That's a simple thing that a lot of people accept. So, again, like, based on that, this movie is the most scary shit ever, just because you don't understand anything.
You can never control.
Yeah, you can't understand how your other person is feeling.
Yeah, you can never go into the psyche of someone else, but this movie does, from someone else's perspective.
You have your own view, and just like he's imagining what she was thinking.
Yeah.
But oh my god, dude, it's so weird.
And it kind of shows that this man was already kind of doomed to fail, because he has such a low self-esteem. Because, like you said, anytime when he's thinking of what she's thinking,
it's negative.
It's always like, oh, I'm thinking of things like, oh, he's a nice guy, but it's still this boring same thing over and over again.
And it's weird because, like, he mentions, like, or in her thoughts, she mentions how, like, what's good about him is also bad about him. Like, oh yeah, he's a nice guy, but, like, just like,
later on, she's like, but he's a nice guy, and it's just
weird. I don't like that, and it's just sad.
Mm-hmm.
It's sad, and I guess, the best way to describe this movie is just the word uncomfortable.
Yeah.
We've talked about the plot and everything that's supposed to mean or whatever, But one thing we haven't even talked about is just the movie itself.
Is it good?
You know, is it a well-made movie and the people in it are good actors and whatever? So, was it a good movie?
I feel like Charlie Kaufman in himself is an underrated director because we all know him as the writer, but he's definitely a fantastic director in this. And
There's so many well-made shots. There's the actors.
I feel like the way he's directing these actors and with the script is very well, because I feel like with him under the director, it becomes so much more of a Charlie Kaufman film because he's telling them what he wrote, basically.
He's telling them what he exactly intends for the script to be done.
Because like if you look with stuff like Eternal Sunshine or Adaptation or Me and John Malkovich, stuff like that, or I'm Lisa, because those are he directed. But stuff like that, it's like it has stuff like Spike Jonze's voice. I can't remember who directed Eternal Sunshine at the moment, but it has also their voice in it with the Charlie Kaufman words. But in this one, it's his words and his voice.
And his vision, you know.
And his vision as well. So,
which it's great because like the movie it has the classic independent movie aspect ratio.
Yes.
That's just been seen in a lot of independent movies now. And while in those movies, I never feel like it utilizes it well. I feel like in this movie, it does utilize it very well because like it itself. It adds to how uncomfortable it is because it's very boxed.
It's a lot what I feel another movie that did right with Lighthouse, because that whole movie was just we're stuck in a lighthouse. So
yeah,
and I feel like it used that aspect ratio well because it's like, oh, now we're feeling trapped in this as well.
In this relationship, and like in the car scene, you feel just as trapped and not able to leave, just as her character is, just with how the movie looks itself, which is, you know, incredibly creative. I mean, you wouldn't think to use something as like not really important as like an aspect ratio to tell a message, which just again, Charlie Kaufman is a creative guy. And like you said, the actors are really well directed.
I feel like all four of the main cast should
get some sort of
get
Oscar
some
nom.
recognition for this. Especially, I feel huge for, I'd say, Jessie Buckley.
Yeah, she did an amazing job.
Because the way in some scenes in the same shot can just change to a completely different character that has their own personality and spin to the way they talk, the way they move, everything.
And how she says her lines, nothing ever feels like a separate shot. It all feels like one complete central piece of dialogue.
And even though a lot of the dialogue is said in a monotone thing, instead of where Tenet failed with their monotone talking, this one, there's something about Jessie Buckley when she talks in the monotone voice that it just, there's something in there that you look for.
It's just like there's different characters.
Yeah, you can tell there's something.
Because like I said, the whole her being like a film critic at one point, there's that. There's
in the beginning, just listening to her poetry or her thoughts, even.
It's very, I'm thinking of ending things. Like, yeah, it's monotone, but it's monotone for a reason.
Exactly.
You know? It's not passionate. She's just reading what she thinks to herself. I also, I really just liked, like we discussed the setting. The setting itself also adds to how just like claustrophobic the movie is. We never see, like the only moment that we see like a liveliness or like a town is in the beginning where we see where Jessie Buckley lives.
Yeah.
Where it's like her house. And like, quick question. In the opening when we see, or when we listen to her thoughts, was that her house?
I believe it looked a lot like
the parents' house?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, because I don't think we ever see where she lives. We just see her outside of her house and she gets picked up.
All we know is she lives in the city.
Yeah, she just keeps saying, I need to get back
to the city.
But
every time she's like, I need to go home, he keeps saying, oh, the farmhouse. She's like, no, the city.
He's saying like, oh, home is the farmhouse. Yeah. He's still, that's still his home.
He's still stuck in his youth.
Yeah. And, oh my god, dude, it's just like all the driving parts were some of my favorite parts in the movie. Like, again, the first opening with them in the car is just...
He crafts scenes within scenes.
Yeah, it's just so weird. There's multiple aspects of one complete setting. Like we said, how like their ages constantly get different in the house. Technically, while that should be just like one scene, it's all like it's changing rapidly, and dude, it's just like there's so many small things in the movie, and it's just like it's stupid, but it's just cool. Yeah. It's just cool to watch all of these little things coming together to form one complete movie. Was there anything else apart from those things that were great? It's just everything was pretty much good. A lot of it is great. Like, if I had to say anything that's bad about the movie, and this isn't even bad, because, again, it's intended completely by Kaufman. Yeah. But, again, it's hard to really figure out what it's trying to say.
Some of the lighting was off in some scenes. Yeah. Just cause, but I understand why it is sometimes it's hard to... Even when all the lights are off and it's dark outside, it's still...
It's weird, because like, Kaufman's such an interesting person that you can't tell if problems with the movie were actually intended.
Yes.
After all, like, oh yeah, maybe he intended the lighting to be shit in some scenes.
Exactly.
So it's like, you know, I think this is almost a near perfect movie, but I don't want to just go outright and be like, oh yeah, 10 out of 10. Best movie I've ever seen in my life.
Exactly.
But like, I mean, no doubt it's one of the best movies of the year. I mean, not a lot of movies have come out. I mean, it's better than Tenet.
Exactly.
It's better than New Mutants. I haven't made my video about that yet, but it's way better than anything.
Only movie, in my opinion, it doesn't beat is Boy State. I think.
I haven't watched that yet.
Besides Boy State, I think this is the best film. It's like I think this Boy State and Sonic. No, not Sonic.
Unhinged.
No. Yeah, and Unhinged, even though we love those movies. Trying to think.
Fucking Unhinged.
Sonic. Back on Sonic.
Sonic is third place. It's the best. Dude, what if Sonic goes to the Oscars?
That would be awesome. Yeah, Boy State, I'm thinking of Anything's a Bad Education. I feel like are the three best ones of this year so far from what we've seen. We still don't know when the Wes Anderson film will come out.
Oh my god, that better come out this year. I hope that's not getting delayed.
This week's, because that could always beat it. But besides that, yeah, it's just...
It's definitely incredible. A great movie. What would you give it out of 10?
Like a 9.5.
9.5? Oh man. I was thinking like 8, but I mean, like, reflecting back, there's not much to complain about apart from just like you might not get anything about it. It might just be way too confusing. I mean, it's not hard to follow. It's not like, again, we keep talking about it, Tenet. It's not something where you're not going to understand anything about it. It's just you can't understand what it's supposed to mean. Yeah. What it's like trying to talk about. I mean, you are going to get confused at some points when things change. Like when they're like, "Oh yeah, Lucia," you're like, "Wait, I thought her name was Lucy." Yeah. Wait, what? You know, like some people are just going to be confused by that.
And at least I feel like there's some movies where it's confusing, but you don't want to rewatch it because it's just bad. Tenet. Like I might watch a couple scenes, rewatch those, but like the whole movie, no, I don't want to rewatch that. While this, it's like, yeah.
I'd like to rewatch it to try and like understand more.
I'd like to understand more about Tenet, but I don't want to sit down and rewatch that whole movie.
Rewatch a 2.5 hour long movie. These movies are like...
They're both around the same length, but it's just... This movie just feels like there's more substance to it than Tenet. What Tenet did. So.
I think, yeah, I'm probably going to go with a solid 9. I really, really fucking like this movie. It's a great movie. I mean, like, one thing we need to say is, like, let's just talk about the audience, and because I think everybody should watch this movie, but the problem is people aren't probably going to understand it. Like, if you've never seen a Charlie Kaufman movie, if you go to Netflix right now and watch it, you're probably not going to get anything about it.
If you just read the description,
you're going to be confused.
Yeah, you're going to be lost.
So, I mean, one thing we can just talk about is, like, movies that they can watch to, like, understand the Kaufman way.
I'd say go in first with Eternal Sunshine.
Eternal Sunshine, everybody
I feel like you should go start with that.
That was my first Kaufman movie, and that is something where, like, anybody can watch it and find it to be, like, just good.
I'd definitely say that. And then after that, once you really get into who he is as a writer, go into, I'd say, John Malkovich, and then because that's when you'll get more of the more like more out there, interesting stuff,
otherworldly shit.
Mm-hmm. And then I'd say adaptation next to really get
adaptation is what you're gonna get into even
what you're really getting
metatextual stuff.
That's like the most Kaufman you'll get.
You're literally getting into his.
And then after that, I'd say probably watch Lisa if you get the time. But then going on thinking of ending things. I'd say.
Yeah, I'm thinking of ending things is like that's the finale where you're like, all right, look, I get this guy is a weird person.
Like you can watch his other filmography as well. But
I mean, you can if you want to, you can go into this movie without watching anything else. We're not saying don't watch the movie.
Just know what you're getting into before you.
You have to understand it is a movie where it's just weird.
Don't think you're getting into
a normal movie,
normal horror film.
Yeah, don't go into it thinking you're gonna watch a horror movie with jump scares. That's the one thing you gotta know.
Exactly.
Because I just went into it being like, oh yeah, it's a Kaufman movie. I'm gonna have some very Kaufman stuff, you know. But yeah, I mean, Jesus, man, it's a really, really good movie. Is there any other things we should talk about?
No.
That's
it.
Yeah, that's kind of it, guys.
Bye.
I
guess.
Bye.